Hi friends! I'm gonna talk like this because I got news. It's yesterday. Just kidding. Today is Sunday and I just got to Cambodia here with my team, and so I thought this is the beginning of our 6 months. We're just about halfway through, so why not fill you guys in more on what has been going on these last 5 months to launch us into the last 5.5 months left. So as you all know, we started off our journey in Uganda, Africa, and it's crazy to think that that was only 5 months ago. It kind of feels like a lifetime. Uganda was a lot of things. We had our training camp there where we met the rest of our squad. Uganda was a lot of figuring out our reins and our responsibilities and the do's and don'ts of our mission field for the year, as well as getting to meet our first team and bond with them, as well as figuring out where in the world we were to go. My team, the Gentle Warriors, got to go down to Masaka, Uganda, and we stayed at a backpackers hostel, which turned out to be more like someone's personal extra house. We stayed with a man named Joseph, and we got to help Joseph with a personal project that he's been longing for and hoping to use as a way to reach out to the elders of his community. And so that was super fun to paint with him and to get to know him. And we recall so vividly all of his questions he had about Jesus. It was cool because he knew about Catholicism, but he didn't want to be a born-again Christian because they're crazy and they have too many rules. And all these rules and regulations that he's been taught just by seeing Christians in his community and how they act. I remember him saying that he had one person he knew who was a born-again who he believed Jesus would provide for him, so he stopped working and stopped all of his responsibilities and just expected Jesus to lay meals down at his feet. And where Jesus does have the power to do crazy things, we're also called to steward what he's given us, whether it's our skills, our time, and whatever else may be. But the Lord doesn't usually call us to not work forever and to just rely on others. And so it's just hard for him to hear him having a harsh story and not want to be that because of that. So that was interesting and fun to reach out to him and work with him. And Uganda was also challenging for me because it's my first month in Africa. I've never been to Africa. It would mark the longest time I've ever been gone from home and my comforts. It also marked the month that my grandmother passed away. And she not only was my last grandmother or last grandparent alive, but I was close with her, and in the last few years of life, her and her husband became very important people in my life. And so not only was I in a new community, new people, new team, literally living with people constantly, I also was going through a lot of things back home with, not being with my sisters, not being with my whole family during the passing. And so a lot of personal growth started there with learning how to let go and let God. And I just gave him my family one person at a time. It took time for sure, and you'll hear as I continue how that develops over the other months. Our second country was Rwanda, and Rwanda was amazingly beautiful. It had the most hills. It literally is the land of 1,000 hills. We at first stayed in a place called Ramagana, and we're literally on top of the mountain in Ramagana and got to see the most beautiful sunrise I've ever seen. And yes, it was the rise, not the set. And there we kind of had a retreat getaway as a team and got to learn how to minister to one another. We got to cook for the first time. And then after that little retreat weekend, we went down to the capital, Kigali, and found an Airbnb there. And it ended up being a mansion Airbnb for our budget. Crazy how affordable things can be if you just ask for discounts. So that was awesome. And in that area, our ministry ended up, again, being the people right in front of us. And so we helped out a lot with our friend JC and his family. He has a wife and 2 kids. We got connected through a few churches through them, And so we did spend some of our time in one of the biggest churches I've ever seen in Kigali, and got to meet their pastor, pour into her and pray over her and her husband and the church as a whole. We got to spend 2 or 3 Sundays there and worship alongside believers who are so aware of the Spirit that lives within inside of them. It was amazing to see, because in this church, people would start screaming out their prayers. Some would scream in tongues, and some would scream in their native language, Kinyarwanda, or some even in English. And so it was just really, really cool to be in that presence of the Holy Spirit and be filled in it, and to just learn about different ways of worshiping. Through this church, we got to meet people who would come alongside and encourage us and tell us how crazy we were to do what we're doing. And the biggest saying I say now is, what we're doing is crazy, but my Jesus is crazy, and he's the only person I'll follow. And if crazy it is, then crazy it'll be. Personal growth in Rwanda was hard for me. Taking everything I was learning in Uganda and then applying it to more of my community life was really tough. Learning how to love others the right way, or learning how to decipher what is of my thoughts and of the enemy coming inside of me or beside me was the biggest challenge, and didn't make a lot of sense for a long time. Rwanda is where I decided to stop talking with my family to focus on what's right in front of me, including myself, including my teammates, but also, of course, the ministry in front of us as the family and the churches that we met and walked alongside. One of my favorite parts about Rwanda was one day 2 teammates and I went on a prayer walk, more like a listening prayer journey to seek who God had for us. And so listening prayer, we pray as a group and sit in silence and listen to what the Lord has for us. And literally sometimes it's the color yellow, it's the word dirt, it's woman, it's little things, but when you take the little things and you put them together, there are puzzle pieces. And so we had our words and we start walking, and not even 5 minutes into our walk on the top of this mountain, we run into all of these words and all of these clues. And at first we walked past it because it was like way too easy, and it's at the beginning, and we stop. And I talked to the girls and I was like, this is it. Can't be it, but it is. And so, we were like, there's no loss in trying to talk to them. It was a young woman and a boy. And so we went back and we tried talking to them, and they didn't speak English. But language does not matter in the kingdom at all. And we got to love and on these, this boy and this woman, by playing with them and by hand gestures and dancing and the little things, and even just being in their presence, taking a weight off of them that we felt when we got there. And within an hour, we had 8 more kids playing with us on the street, and a little girl with a tree trunk on her head carrying it somewhere. And it just blew our mind. It really did, because in all the other days we've never seen anyone on the side of the road, especially up that far. And it was the coolest experience, and the Lord really, really showed me that it is the person right in front of us. And a lot of times seeking Him isn't as hard as we make it. It's right in front of us. And so for me, that encourages me for when I go home. I don't have to go all the way to Africa or Asia or Central America or Europe or Hawaii to find the people that the Lord has for His kingdom, or the interruption that He needs in my life. I just have to be willing to stop and listen and obedient to actually go and do. The third country that we visited is one of my favorites. Don't tell anyone. Was Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, when I first got to the country, I was like, this place is dark and dirty and more like Egypt than I thought it would be. But then God just boomed, rocked my world. Ethiopia ended up being the first place that I drank coffee, and now I drink it almost every day. it was a place where we worked with an organization that was an orphanage in family style, where they divided the kids into different homes and had a name for each home. And within every home, there was a mother and an auntie. So they had parent figures as well as a lot of siblings. And then these houses would join together and all the kids would hang out. And one of the coolest and most fun ways to instill an orphanage family mentality. So that place is called Salamta, and at Salamta we also met some of my best friends. I don't want to throw all their names out because if I ever left someone out, I would feel horrible. But you guys know who you are, and I miss you very much. In Ethiopia, I totally forgot this, we started out an organization called OH, Ordinary Hero. And there we met one of our dear friends, Hope, and she's amazing. She's from Tennessee. I shared a post about her. And the organization she helped at in. And one of those places was in an area called Kora. Kora is a trash dump area just outside Addis Ababa. We call Addis Ababa. They call it Addis, which is the capital. And so we had heard about the area before, and a couple days before we were to leave and go, we didn't know where yet, the landslide happened. There was a huge landslide just outside the capital in this area called Kora, and it killed hundreds of people, around 300 is what the final total call was at the time that we left. And they still hadn't recovered all the surface area that had been covered up. And so we actually decided to move to that area after the accident, and we got to meet and fall in love with such awesome people of that area that have grown up in that area and had lost people that they loved. I remember meeting a married couple that lost their 10-year-old daughter. My good friends that I made there, one of their best friends lost 5 or 7 people in his family, and that's a really hard topic to share about, and I am still in the making of a video for that. I didn't forget you boys. That was really cool that the Lord could use us to bring a little bit of light in that darkness, just to remind people that they are loved and that God is seeking them out to just meet them and love them and pray on them. I'm not saying that we're special people. I'm saying that they're special people, that the Lord brought us in a time where they needed to be uplifted. And it's not just the people who lost somebody, people that grew up in that area or work in that area. We got to love on them and meet them and be a part of their family and a part of their culture. And so that's why Ethiopia will always have a big spot in my heart, and the people from there as well. And I got to celebrate one of my best friend's birthday there, and it was a blast. And Ethiopia personally was just working through all of that, as well as going back to the journey I've been going on, learning how to be myself while also loving people the way that they needed to be loved, was the big thing for me during that month while all of this was going on. So learning to love was kind of like the trekking of that month, where I had people on the outside of my team that needed love, and so I was pouring my love out endlessly, but learning how to love those right in front of me on a different level and a different extent was what I worked through in Ethiopia. The fourth country was Malaysia. So we went from our African culture to Malaysia, and it was a culture shock. Not as grand as I expected, but more so in the sense of there was fried chicken and french fries everywhere, and we were so happy about it. So I gained weight for sure my first week in Malaysia. We also ran into our first Chinese market, and so I spent my first of my other monies, more so than I would want to. But hey, a bargain girl, once a bargain girl, always a bargain girl. But within the markets, provided an opportunity to talk to many, many people from many, many cultures, whether they were selling or buying. And so we got to do that, and a friend of mine and I went and got her some henna, and she got the discount she wanted, and I got the friend I was looking for. And so she got to, this friend of mine, Ritswana, she got to pour out her heart to me, and she believes in, she's Islam. And so she got to just share with me her life story and the struggles that she has back home, and how her father-in-law is super ill and lives with them, and how because her kids take care of their grandfather, they get good grades, because good action, good reward. And so it was really cool to just listen to her, as well as hear the struggle of arranged marriage, but also the ability to learn to love somebody, and just to kind of share with her that there is a chance out there to have freedom and to not feel the weight of a past accident or trouble that they had gone through. And no, at the end of the day, she didn't come to Christ, but she has a good friend now who is a Christian, and I have a good friend who is Islamic. And at the end of the day, we loved on each other, and that's what the Lord calls us to do, is to love on others. And so that was the gist of Malaysia for me, because I was only there for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. And then we got up and my team left and we went to Indonesia. We were the only team that went to Indonesia. Praise the Lord, it was a party. And that was because of a teammate's visa issue. And so it was cool seeing, like, we couldn't prepare where we were supposed to go that month because the Lord had something else in store. And so my GW team flew to Indonesia and stayed in Jakarta. Once we got to Jakarta, a friend of mine from Indonesia, Aurora, shout out to her, hooked us up with a couch surfer, which, look up that app, couch surfing, and his name is Carl, and Carl is now a very good friend of mine. He has a nice house with a pool, so if you remember posts of a nice pool in the sunny weather, it was because of him. And we got to minister to him kind of on the level of being that friend and being loving and showing that missionaries are normal people. And we got to accompany him to his church on Easter. And it was really cool because you could see the freedom he saw in us in the way that we worshiped, and the change in him from the time we got to the service, the time we left. And even with that, at the time that we left the service, he actually signed up for their men's retreat weekend, which was a bigger, bolder step for him. So just to even be alongside him going through that process, we didn't cause any of it to happen, but it was cool to walk alongside and pray for him in those moments. He also had a big white fluffy cat that was super cool to hang out with, named Gucci. We spent 1 week with Carl and Gucci, and then looked at couch surfing for another place in an area called Bandung, and went there and actually stayed with a school via couch surfing and got to help teach English to middle school age students and make friends with them. And we were shown around the area. In Bandung, we did do a lot of traveling around the area to learn more about the culture. It was cool to just hear differences and even talk politics and talk about the spiritual world that is really present there. A lot of people are into paranormal activity, and they see it a lot in that area. So praying over that area was big for us during our week there in Bandung. When it comes to my personal journey in Indonesia, some of the biggest stuff occurred. Like I had mentioned before, I had been working on letting things go and learning to love and learning to do it the right way. Well, in Indonesia, the Lord really just spoke to me and opened my eyes, my blind eyes, to the fact that there is no right or wrong way to love, but there is communication when it comes to love. And something that I've always struggled at is communicating verbally to people that I love them and that I want to be their friend, or I want to be in relation with them, in whichever way that is meant to be. And that's something that I just expect people to understand, whereas that's not the way we all feel loved. So that's something I definitely learned in Indonesia. The last country I have to share on is Thailand. We got a new team right before Thailand, and so now I'm a brave heart. We got there and got to stay with our friends we met in Malaysia, actually, and they're from the United States, and so we just got to love on them and hang out with them. And it was cool because the Lord brought us to the same spot in Thailand. and Thailand has a lot of places to go. So that was cool to just see God's purpose in that for us. And we got to love on a really, really good friend of mine and ours during a really hard time in her life. And so the Lord just provides in the little things, and it's crazy cool. He's a crazy guy that we follow. And so that started out our month in Thailand, and then they actually went to Bangkok, and we stayed on this island area and helped with the church. We actually ended up helping more with the family than the church, but with that we got to do night ministry as well, so bar ministry in the red light district, which was our first time as a team and as individuals going into an area like that on the race. And so that was cool to go through those challenges and struggles alongside girls who have the same heart for women's ministry and bar ministry that I do. And then, of course, again, back to the family, we spent the whole week just loving on them and meeting them and having them become my sisters and brothers, and learning the challenges that come with being a missionary family in Phuket, Thailand, where there aren't very many other Christians to walk alongside with and to have pour into you to keep you going. And so for us to be that for the family was really important, and definitely what the Lord had for us during that month. And again, as you've probably seen in other posts, we did spend 2 days on PP Island, and we got to have another little team retreat where we just got to dive into each other, learn more about one another and what is important for our team going forward into our next month. In Thailand, personally, I was super exhausted. I took all these things that I had been learning from the past and the excitement of being vulnerable for my last team and my last month with them, to an area where I was literally just loving and being vulnerable and loving and going out and doing things and being adventurous, to the point of where I was pretty exhausted. I'm like, I'm done with the feels. I'm done with, I just want to sit and elevate my feet and close my eyes, maybe watch a movie. But it's been cool to kind of see the same lessons with a different community, because I came from a group of people who are pretty good at listening, to a group of talkers. So I'm really excited to continue to learn how to change and adapt while also dying to myself on my stubbornness and allowing myself to be vulnerable and allowing myself to be wrong. So the Lord's still doing crazy things, but those are some more of the little stories behind the bigger post. So you've seen, like, in Uganda, we rafted the Nile River. In Rwanda, we went on an African safari. In Ethiopia, there was that big tragedy that happened at the landslide. In Malaysia and Indonesia, there was just a lot of market life. And then last month you saw in Thailand, there was a lot of beach life and island life. But within that, there's so much more. And so I wanted to be sure to share that with you guys. Feel free to ask away. So God bless. I'm praying for you guys in the United States and wherever else you may be. Just praying that the Lord continues to guide your path, but more importantly, that you're obedient and give yourself this time and space to listen.